Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any of our watches. So reach out to us for pricing at Mosso at the1916company.com. Today we're discussing a 2023 model year limited edition of 70 pieces in steel. You are looking at the Blancpain 50 Fathoms 70th Anniversary Series 1. This is a timepiece that is part of the 5010 generation of the watch, but unlike the regular production launched for 2024, this one is stainless steel, not titanium. So 42.3 millimeters in diameter in steel. Two ways to measure it. If you measure it with the NATO style strap slung along the back, then it's going to be 17.1 millimeters thick. If you measure it case to crystal, so basically sapphire to sapphire, you're going to find that it's 14.5 millimeters thick without the backing of this strap. From lug tip to lug tip, 48.1 millimeters, and it has a quirky intermediate size between the lugs of 21.5 millimeters. And that is how I measure it. That is also Blancpain's spec for the watch. Now, there were several series of 70th anniversary watches celebrating 70 years since the original 1953 50 Fathoms, if you take that at face value as the first year. And this was by far the most classical of the 2023 70th anniversary pieces. This is also the closest to the one that we got as a regular production watch for 2024, but between the steel case and the unique three-dimensional block luminescent indices and numerals, this is still very much its own watch and a very distinctive 70-piece edition. So we'll put it on my wrist. Keep in mind, you can put it on a conventional Blancpain sailcloth strap if you wish. Taking a look on the wrist, you can see that like all NATO straps and underslung straps like buns, this adds some thickness to the watch and some height over the wrist. It's also not the most straightforward strap to wear, although it's more conventional than a gooseneck closure NATO, and I'll show you why that is in a moment. This watch is actually a great fit for my wrist. It's just the strap that's exaggerating the size and the width of the watch a bit, as well as the height over the wrist. And I do actually think this will fit just fine underneath most cuffs, especially once you put it on a more conventional strap. Now, why I say this is less of a challenge than a conventional NATO is because it works like a conventional strap. So you've got these little cutaways for the buckle, and you've got a pin buckle, so you just set the size of it like a conventional strap. There's no gooseneck closure system to lock it in place as you'd find a NATO. That saves some bulk, but you still have quite a bit of height above the wrist due to the underslung strap behind the case. Now, taking a look, you can see that Blancpain kept all the important things. Really, if it weren't for the block numerals and indices in the presence of the 70th anniversary dedication, you'd be hard-pressed to distinguish this from the previous 45mm 5015, and I take that as a good thing. That was one of the best-looking and best-proportioned divers on the market, as well as one of the richest in detail, and this continues in that vein. We've got a crown guard structure around a screw-down crown. The watch is 300 meters water resistant. Yes, I know 300 meters is not 1,000 feet. Press the I believe button. You can also see that the lugs are still broken out from the case band, so we don't get a Seamaster or Submariner-like integration of lugs with case. We also have little hex screws that fix bars that keep the strap in place. That's actually a good thing because more durable and with greater certainty than spring bars. This is exactly what you want on a very expensive and heavy watch, and this watch deserves no less. So I always like to see that. Now, if you give me just a moment, I will show you some of the movement. This is not the easiest thing to do when a watch is on a strap of this nature, but I'll give you a decent amount of insight into the movement. As you could see, the movement is still the 1315 that we saw in the original 2007 reference 5015. So still 3 barrels, automatic winding, 120 hours of power reserve, 4 hertz beat rate, 35 joules, 6 position adjustment, not the chronometer standard of 5, free sprung for shock resistance and precise adjustment with an anti-magnetic silicone hairspring. Those 3 barrels giving you 5 days of power reserve, still solidly more than the industry standard, with a quick set date and hacking seconds. You can also see solarization on the ratchet wheel, snailing across the bridges, mirrored anglage on the edges of the bridges with screw heads black polished, and the same treatment in the jewel and screw sinks. The anglage is quite impressive here, and as you could see, it is uniformly bright and broad. Now, one thing that is a little bit new and exotic is that here we have a 70th anniversary. Let me try to get a better image of that rotor there. We have a 70th anniversary rotor. The rotor is made of platinum, which is, as far as I've seen, exclusive on 50 Fathoms models. Usually it's gold. So here it's platinum. It's been satinated in a track that runs around the periphery of the edge, beveled on its sides and hollowed interior. It's been media blasted, and then the very edge has been snailed. And this is exclusive to the 50 Fathoms 70th anniversary, both the fact that it is platinum and the fact that it says 70th anniversary. Now, the shape of it is designed to evoke the rotor on the original automatic 1950s 50 Fathoms models. That's where that design itself comes from. And you can see individual numbering in a series of 70. Rolling around to the dial, we have a 120 click bezel, that can be placed with precision. I have to say, this bezel action is the best I've yet encountered on a 50 Fathoms. It's chunkier and more mechanical than something like a Rolex or a Cartier or a Grand Seiko dive bezel, which all tend to be very, very refined and smooth. But the fact that it is 120 click means you get that tactile mechanical feedback, but you also get great precision. And again, this is where keeping just about every major detail of the prior model with proportional changes has really created a fantastic watch. We still have a very sharp knurling that's a pleasure to grip and easy to grip with wet, sweaty, or gloved hands. And you can see how the sapphire cap on the bezel, they didn't go to a ceramic insert. It's still cambered and rounded across its top to make it look like there's one big dewdrop over the bezel. And because it's all sapphire and highly scratch resistant, you can have a fully lumed bezel with no danger of displacing the lume by scratching or scuffing or contact. We also have a bubble-like sapphire, highly cambered over a black dial. And if you look carefully, you could see something that was unique to these anniversary editions, this use of solid three-dimensional blocks of luminescent material. All of these numerals and indices have length, width, and height, so they're not printed. They're actually applique made solely of luminova. Let's take a quick look at how that presents in the dark. Well, first you can see what I told you about the entire bezel being luminescent. You don't just get a bezel pearl and dead reckoning. You get a very highly calibrated and precise bezel that acts as your 0 to 60 minute count-up timer. And I've often sung the praises of a dive bezel over a chronograph for timing anything under an hour, plus you don't have the downstream service costs of a chronograph. Also, notice a feature that should be present on every dive watch. All three hands, including the seconds hand, are luminescent, which means, let's take a look, by the way, those three-dimensional indices there, which means you know the watch is running in the dark because of the lumed seconds hand. That's something I value highly. And just to confirm some of the subsidiary functions, you can see we do have a hacking seconds function. And then we also have a quick set date mechanism. This is an absolute pleasure and a privilege to present the first of a new generation of Blancpain 50 Fathoms, 42.3 millimeters in diameter in steel, made for 2023 in 70 pieces. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.